How does a 4:02 a.m. missile launch turn into a five-nation alignment by sunrise? China fired. U.S. defenses shredded 27 missiles in the air, and by 5:40 a.m., Tokyo, Manila, and Canberra weren't just condemning, they were coordinating. In this video, we unpack the chain reaction. Tomahawks from USS North Carolina, F-35Cs in the air, and the diplomatic math that forged a Pacific alliance before breakfast. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. A 56-missile opening gambit was supposed to stun a carrier group, so why did it harden a coalition instead? The first 5 minutes were all speed and geometry. At 3:48 a.m., 22 YJ-18S lit off from standoff arcs, while 16 YJ-83S skimmed in low splitting vectors to force defenders to divide their gaze. The tracks converged on two tags the attackers wanted erased: the guided missile destroyer USS John Paul Jones and the logistics lifeline USNS Washington. The YJ-18S hunted altitude for terminal dives. The YJ-83S hugged 9 feet above the water to stay under radar lobes. That mix, high fast then low silent, was meant to rip open the screen and leave the soft target naked. Combat systems woke up in a rush. Aegis scopes bloomed with returns. Some tracks merged, split, then merged again as sea clutter and electronic noise fought the algorithms. Fire control radars started to paint firm locks, but not all at once, and not without conflicts. Operators worked through cross queues, SPY-1 and surface search, ESM hints and data links, sorting real fangs from ghosts. Somewhere in the rear vector, a YJ-18 shifted to terminal mode and slipped through the first engagement envelope, low and hot. Range shots went first. SM-2s and SM-6s took the top layer, burning down the fast divers before they could flatten out. Sequencing mattered. Fire too early and you waste interceptors on deceptive headings. Fire too late and the closing speed erases your margin. Mid-tier picked up the stragglers. ESSM Block 2s went active, hunting sea skimmers that popped into clean track windows between waves. At knife fight distance, rams reached out with quick time of flight, and CIWS mounts tracked the last leakers with radar-driven bursts. Queuing quality is everything at 3 a.m. A crisp track buys seconds. A smeared return steals them. Intercept counts climbed in disciplined volleys. First salvo, 4 SM-6 kills on steep divers. Second ripple, 6 SM-2s thinning the pack. ESSMs took over as the geometry collapsed. Each shot time to avoid fratricide and keep a firing lane open for the next radar. Multi-axis attacks are built to swamp mines as much as magazines. Every new bearing adds another decision tree and human reaction time becomes a weapon. That was the bet. Jam the loop, overload the timeline, force a mistake. One near miss became a case study. An ESSM closed, proximity fused, and threw a fragmentation cone that sheared guidance off a leaker without killing it outright. The missile dipped, recovered a wobbling course, and sped on. A ram battery snapped a short lead pursuit and punched a direct hit that broke the body. Doctrine assumes these edge cases. You don't plan for perfect kills, you plan for a stack, sensor shooter again, gun if you must, so the last line still has teeth. Models on paper often promise clean outcomes. Simulations highlighted how hypersonic profiles could overwhelm a carrier with small numbers, sequencing waves to blind, saturate, and finish. Reality added friction. Weather spat ground clutter into radar returns. Sensor fusion had to reconcile mismatched latencies. Electronic warfare cut both ways, throwing sand in everyone's gears. That grind, minute by minute, reduced the attacker's elegant timing to uneven pulses the defense could parse and kill. As the screen held, the bridge team stopped reacting and started managing. With the outer ring no longer collapsing, commanders pushed to Level 3 authorization. That flipped the posture from survival to counterpunch. Tubes opened. The Virginia-class submarine USS North Carolina ran its launch checklist and sent Tomahawk Block 5s toward radar nodes and control links. On the deck, F-35Cs spooled, avionics hot, prepared to cut the remaining picture the attackers needed. The missiles stopped. The real shockwaves started on land. Markets, ministries, and map rooms lit up before sunrise, and the pace of the sea fight began to set the tempo ashore. What flips 5 capitals from cautious to coordinated in under 2 hours? The counterstrike landed like a blackout. Tomahawks arced into radar nodes and relay masts, pulling threads out of the targeting web. F-35Cs pushed forward with passive sensors and tight emissions control, feeding jamming plans and locating the last emitters that still dared to talk. Within minutes, Chinese surface groups started losing their picture. Fire control tracks went stale, data links dropped to heartbeat mode, and captains throttled back to avoid sailing blind into a screen they could no longer see. Radios filled with short, clipped traffic and then silence. That quiet traveled fast. Markets heard it first. Oil futures jumped in a vertical line, then tripped circuit breakers in Hong Kong and Singapore. Insurers re-rated the South China Sea as elevated risk and pushed premiums into red zones. Ship owners opened crisis playbooks and began drawing new lines on live maps, hugging Indonesian corridors, delaying departures from Kaohsiung, and stacking anchors off Luzon while they waited for a political signal. Port throughput algorithms flagged the slowdown within minutes, pushing alerts to terminals from Yokohama to Fremantle. Money does not wait for spokespeople. Capitals moved in a sequence that looked rehearsed even if it wasn't. Tokyo stepped out with a language on a rules-based order and sea lane security, a message grounded in the math of energy imports. Manila followed with treaty terms, citing obligations and the conditions under which support becomes action. Canberra convened its Security Committee before dawn and broadcast readiness signals. Air tasking orders prepped, refuelers on standby, and maritime patrol patterns widened. Singapore quietly opened lanes and service windows for U.S. hulls needing fuel and fixes. Hanoi pushed its surveillance net wider around the Spratlys and began sharing track quality data through discrete channels. Each line mattered, not for words, but for the access and throughput behind them. The speed had a simple driver: exposure. Roughly 40% of global shipping flows through those waters. That share turns caution into a countdown. If the lanes close, factories miss inputs within days, tanker schedules break within hours, and energy inventories start a clock no finance minister wants to hear. Policy timelines compress to match logistics realities. That is why statements arrive before sunrise and why ships altered routes before officials finished their first briefings. ASEAN's quiet style met hard requirements. Back channels lit up with practical asks and offers, basing windows in rotational cycles, refueling slots time to avoid headlines, and maritime domain awareness nodes linked by secure pipes. Officers traded coordinates, not speeches. The effect was cumulative. A patchwork became a lane, and a lane became a posture that could sustain patrols without flags changing or parliaments voting on new treaties. Then a new signal cut through. Beijing's internal narrative began to fray. Leaks referenced radar failures during the counterstrike, command misreads between Fleet Command in the center, and a surveillance helicopter that dropped off the net. Censorship pressure spiked, but fragments still slipped into global feeds, hinting at a picture more chaotic than official lines allowed. For watchers on the outside, those cracks explained the sudden quiet at sea and accelerated the moves on land. By the end of the 98 minutes, a de facto alignment had shape. Japan, Australia, the Philippines, Singapore, and Vietnam folded logistics and information flows into a common rhythm. It looked like access agreements, tanker tracks, shared plots, and patrol concepts that could be flown and sailed today. The strike meant to scare neighbors into hedging, instead clarified choices and shortened decision cycles across the map. A single miscalculation hardened lines. The sea went quieter and the phone lines got shorter as planners turned alignment into architecture. A failed bid for coercion forged a coalition. Necessity wrote it faster than any treaty. Within hours, measurable steps appeared. Singapore expanded rotational access at Changi Naval Base, and Vietnam opened real-time maritime intelligence over 600,000 square kilometers. Those moves turned statements into throughput and gave patrols endurance without new banners. Watch logistics, not speeches. Basing rights define persistence, refueling corridors set sortie rates, and data sharing governs targeting speed. If those lanes thicken, the alignment hardens. Power shifted before breakfast across waters that carry 40% of global shipping and $3.5 trillion in trade. Markets priced it. Ministries acted. The next timetable belongs to sustainment.